God saw Lucifer. God watched her transformation, her imitation of the human form. There was no hiding from the Lord. He saw the beast that walked upright in broad daylight and watched her go forward in a land where everything was free and free will reigned. God gave humankind free will and put them in a lush paradise with a great big book of knowledge, the book of Genesis, the book of genocide, the book of great Exodus and crushing revelations. The test was set. Walking around in the middle of the utopia, breathing in excellent air, woman was clothed by her nakedness and had complete trust in the silence. In one moment she could hear the birds sing and could see the trees dance in the winds. She stopped at the water and took a drink and then buried her naked body in the gentle flow of the stream, pure and clear. Paradise was around her, beauty in every corner. Suddenly the animals ran for cover. Dark clouds covered the sun, and the stranger came up from behind the hibiscus flowers. She stared hard at his narcissistic state, yet her heart did not race. It kept at the same pace. She did not know what to make of Lucifer. He was taller, looked stronger, younger. From what clay was this man spun? On what day did he touch the ground? She was confused at his presence, lost in his stare, befuddled by his glare, then engulfed by his mystique. Woman did not realize that this beauty was the bitch. Lucifer came up to her and woman was hooked on his poses, every move expertly choreographed. The Lord of Blackness walked around woman and scrutinized her from head to feet, from belly to cheek. He could feel her heartbeat, then reached out and embraced perfection with pure heat. Their naked bodies meshed, but woman was unaware of the contrast in their worlds. Lucifer squeezed as tight as he could, knowing full well that he was not allowed to bring harm to this innocent lady. His nose played with her neck as he inhaled her sweetness, pure and intoxicating. He would lick her with no regret, but said to himself, not yet. He was now eye to eye with the work of God. As he stared, venom filled his fangs and dripped out of his mouth. He looked deep into the eyes of innocence, and he hissed and spoke in 3 different voices. With an innocence this deep, beauty so deep, and the body so divine, one thing is missing, and that is the opening of thy mind. A chance to look thy maker face to face and match he with equal wit. Know that everything here is imaginary, even the water that thou hast just sipped. If I cut thee, thou shalt bleed, and if I cut thee, thou would receive a world of hurt and get a glimpse of hell where the demons dwell. Thou shalt be removed from the spell, and awesome knowledge will fill thee well. He can only learn about these things when thou read. Thou shalt see a land far beyond this utopia. Have a perception that is clearer. My dear, be aware that this book is pure air. It will enter thy lungs and set thee free. It will clear the smog in thy mind and set thee free. Remember, only the truth shall set thee free. Read it and be set free. The creature had convinced woman. She approached the great big book with an uncertain saunter. She looked upon its cover, dull and unattractive. There were no words upon her cover. Only the letters RR stood in the middle of the center. Woman reached for the great big cover and tore the cover over. It was succulent. It was sweet. She sank her teeth into the meat and felt blood flow down her cheek. She sat there and read about the riches of the worlds to come. the emperors who would rise up and attempt to take control of humanity, the antichrists and the death toll they would inflict upon nations, kings and queens who would sit upon thrones and control formidable armies with charisma and tact. They will go on to colonize foreign lands, pilfer their resources to build great cities, annihilate their indigenous populations by plunging them into abominable slavery. She saw rivers of blood and lakes of fire, streams flowing with diseases and pain through valleys of desolation. These streams go on to overflow their banks, and humankind drowns in a helpless inundation, leaving entire communities in abject isolation. She read about the social sciences and the intellectual justification they would give to immorality. She read about psychology and the workings of the mind. She read about quantum physics, metaphysics, derivatives, standard deviations, relativity, dark matter, and religions to come. She read about medieval times, industrialized times, the times of meteorological chaos, the future secret societies, and the strategies they would employ to silence their enemies. She saw Mother Nature in her tragic and fatal fall. She saw sick and dying people all over the world, abused and abandoned children all over the globe, babies born and organs harvested, child trafficking and child labor. She saw Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Tiananmen Square and Waterloo, Calcutta and Pyongyang, the Alamo and Columbine. She saw swine in the Bay of Pigs and blood in the Mediterranean. She read about the immune deficiency syndrome that will ravage mankind, cancer in all its forms and presentation, police shooting and racial profiling, a nuclear war that will consume the world, madmen with great power and the millions that will worship them, the rich and the great, murderers lying in wait for the chance to execute fate. She saw sexual deviance in a perpetual pursuit for pleasure, the loss of beauty, the lust for beauty, an obsession with the fountain of youth. She glimpsed the very edge of infinity. And by the time she closed the great big book of knowledge, she realized that she was naked. She looked at Lucifer and she was smitten. He grabbed her, then she was beaten. The book was too good not to share with man. She took it to him and gave it to him to read. And as he read, he bled. A colorless liquid oozed from the pores of his skin, from beyond his hairline, then accumulated at his brow. They both dropped to their knees and covered themselves. They were naked and their genitalia swung to life. A prickly sensation flooded their bodies. Their hearts thumped with increasing excitement. She wanted to drain that. He wanted to that. Sex filled their minds as hormones raced through their bloodstreams. They were naked and knew it. Sex haunted their minds incessantly like angry demons at the bottom of hell. They were unquiet. Their gonads became imbibed with mucus that needed urgent release. Blood charged through his loins as sparks tickled her crotch. And under a terrible concupiscence, weight became a weight they just could not contemplate. They did it all, and mankind buried himself deep inside the bliss. He felt lightheaded as he released himself headfirst into the bliss. He was filled with plenty of happy, and he enjoyed this bliss. The silk and the sweat, the blind exploration, the grunts and the bumps, the mild tug of war, hardcore. Eden's floor was becoming stained with sweet sin. But mankind kept his head in. Mankind kept his eyes closed shut, and his temperature rose sharply as he tried in earnest to click the spot. It became clear to him that he could love this a whole lot. They were amongst the trees on the forest floor in the presence of pure bliss. Their mouths were tightly locked in what would become the first kiss. Womankind urged mankind on his steady hits and felt the pressure building up far beyond her very reach. She was at a merry tip and mankind was about to lose his grip. His entire skin contracted, his toes curled as he reached the very top of his bliss. Then when he opened his eyes, he found himself in an abyss. They were ashamed they were naked, they walked upright, hunched over, and God came down. God called them forth and they came out hiding their private parts. What they had done was simple. They had read from the great big book of life, from the fountain of misery, from the source of heartache, from the tool of destruction, from the book of good as well as evil. They needed clothes. Mother Nature was terrified. Lucifer slithered away, totally satisfied, and the world started its slow but certain march towards debauchery. Evil had invaded the land that was good. Womankind now had two different nations growing inside her womb. For punishment, God cast them out of his garden. They could no longer eat for free. Fruits will cause allergic reaction. Food will no longer be readily available to them. They will be susceptible to sicknesses and diseases. Animals will either fear them or want to kill them. Centipedes will develop venom and will bite them. Elephants will trample them. God looked at them and told them, "Because you have done this great evil, I will bestow on you capitalism. You will work to eat, to feed yourselves, to feed your children. Capitalism will be upon you, and this is the only system that will preserve your free will. The only system that is an outward expression of human tendency. You will be free to earn and free to spend. That will be the way of the world. You will enjoy the fruits of capitalism and be chastised by its barbarity. But do be aware of other systems that man will propose to you. The Garden of Eden is forever lost. An ideal world is gone. A utopia will be a myth lost in the mist of bliss. Be forewarned. That will be the way of the world, because I have spoken. I am the Lord. Now go in peace."